Welcome to another Blue Room Weekly with myself, Warren, and in my carousel of guests, I have with me this week Peter Mack. And I've been wanting to get Pete on for a long time because there's a couple of things towards the end of the show that I do want to talk to you about, Pete. But firstly, welcome, mate. Good to talk to you again. Good to see you again. Um, with regards to Everton, then we haven't really spoke for a while, and I think it's been a great 5, 6 weeks under Davy Moyes, hasn't it? But with regards to the game last night, just your initial thoughts really on the 1-1 draw at Brentford.
Yeah, I think it says a lot as to how far we've come in such a short space of time that we're probably disappointed of just getting a point. Obviously, the manner in which we got the point with a late equaliser that gave us a bit of a boost. But I think given the chances that we had certainly in the first half with Beto, I felt and then to concede that really sloppy goal towards the end of the first half, I think we'd be really disappointed with that. But overall, I think a point any point away from home in the Premier League is a good point, especially when you find yourself in the position that we have. But as I say, it just shows how far we've come in such a short space of time under David Moyes that we're all disappointed that we've only come away with one. In terms of Beto as well, I think I've seen some criticism levelled at him. I'm not in that camp, to be honest with you. I think when you look at the chances that he's getting, a lot of them he's creating for himself by his tenacity, by his strength, by his pace. I think he's creating chances for himself that other players in the squad wouldn't necessarily create. I think that because of how his style of play, because we're actually seeing to be playing to his strengths now, he might miss chances, but he's going to score goals. I think he'll get goals. And I've always said that about Beto. If you give him a good run of games, he will get you goals, and he's proven that a lot recently, which has been part of the reason why we've been on such a good run.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Beto as the show goes on because I think it's an interesting one with him at the minute with some of the comments made initially last night in the instant sort of post-match feel and post-match feeling with some fans. But just going back to the game itself, I think for me, and I said this on post-match last night, I never felt that Brentford were wave after wave of attack, and I never felt particularly threatened by them. And their goal come from what I thought was some pretty poor defending, albeit from a back four that I thought played particularly well last night. These lapses in concentration are happening in games, I feel, recently, and I'm sure that the team behind it and the management team behind all of it are looking at ways that they can stamp this out so that these kind of goals that we're conceding recently, bringing it on ourselves to a degree, are stopping. But I think for me, Pete, I look at Brentford and I think they're a side on the day who can beat anyone. I think they've got some really good players, and I think, like you said, to go away from home and get the point that we got, I think shows where we've come as a club in the last 6 weeks under David Moyes. I mean, like I said, I think last month or the last couple of months, or if that was earlier in the season, pre-Christmas, we that result, do we?
Mm. No, and I think that's it. I think it shows when you look at a lot of the performances as well, even against Man United when we were absolutely robbed of that last kick, last minute penalty. I think that the players have shown that resilience and they haven't just let their heads drop and they've carried on fighting right till the end. And I think that is something that maybe under Sean Dyche, eh, those types of gutsy performances were too few and far between. Where we could go on these barren runs of defeats and draws, but they weren't necessarily impressive draws, if you like, where you're coming out of it feeling reasonably happy with the draw. I feel like the character and the confidence in the players has returned. And hopefully, and again, you've got to bear in mind as well the amount of. I mean, I don't like to make excuses, but the amount of injuries we've got in that squad as well. It's already a very thin squad as it is. But when you add in the injuries that we've got, and certainly to key players, I think that the players are almost running on empty, but they're still giving their all and they're still fighting right till the very end, and that's the most impressive thing for me. I'd say I'd like to see what we're like once we've got a bit more of a balanced squad, once we've got players back, once we've got Illiman and Dye when he's back, when Calvert-Lewin's fit, whether or not he plays, I don't know. I'd rather start Beto. Obviously Amanda Broja as well at some point to come back, McNeil to come back in the side. The list is endless of all these players who could potentially come in and make a difference and really kick us on. So, yeah, let's say decent point that last night for me. Brentford, no mugs, good manager, really good attacking side as well. So I think that the fact that they were kind of, their one big chance, if you like, comes from a long throw. Other than a few sort of half chances in the earlier on in the first half, I don't think they really threatened us because we were so well organised.
Yeah, agreed. I think that the organisation levels of Everton recently have been, it has been there, hasn't it? I think we're not as steadfast defensively anymore. We look a little bit more open and we look a little bit more like we want to create and score, which has been really a positive to see. And I do want to talk about Alcaraz actually to you later on, and after we speak about Beto, because I do want to mention Beto, but I do want to mention, talk, as I say to you, about Alcaraz and how he's adapted since he's joined us. But just going back to Beto, and you said something really key for me there. His hard work and his tenacity. You used that word tenacity, and I think a lot of that is his natural game, and he's created a lot for himself. I absolutely agree, and I think some of the comments on him were a little bit unfair last night. I am in the camp of I give him a free pass. Yes, he should probably score at least two of out of the three chances he had in the game. I thought the third opportunity where he was one-on-one was actually a very good save from the goalkeeper, and I said that last night on post-match. But he's got to score at least one of them others. But I'm inclined, Pete, to give him a free pass because I think he's been brilliant lately. I think his all-round game has improved a lot in recent weeks. I think it's not just a case of coming on and causing a bit of chaos. He's actually been quite effective as an all-round striker. Do you look at him and do you think that? I mean, I don't think it's a question now, Pete, that he's the main striker at the club at the moment, and it's got to take one of the other strikers to hit a purple patch of form for them to overtake him. But do you feel with him that this was just a one-off, or I know we might see now and again the odd chance he misses. I personally can see him coming back the next couple of games and being the better we've seen in the last few weeks. Or was there a sign there that maybe we do need to be? Because we probably do need to look at another striker in the summer. Do you think that we still need to look and find someone of better quality for us to progress as a club?
I, I see. I've always been of the opinion I don't think Beto's a 20-goal a season striker. I don't think he's clinical enough. But having said that, I think that if you play him to his strengths, which David Moyes seems to be doing, rather than the way Sean Dyche had him playing with his back to goal, where he was almost like a bit of a target man. He was coming on for the last 15, 20 minutes, basically just to lump the ball up to. That's not his game at all. And I think that when you consider he's been at the club for 18 months now, and this is really the first time he's had a strong strong run in the side where he's been able to play for 90 minutes, and he's had that, say, extra pressure but and responsibility as well to lead the line. And I think he's reaping the benefits of that now. But as I say, he's bound to be rusty as well because he has had such a long time where he's sort of been on the peripheral and he's only been getting half chances to come on off the bench, and he's probably been a bit too eager. But I think that, as I say, Beto's the type of player. I mean, he might not be the most naturally gifted centre forward in the world. He's not Romelu Lukaku. He's not going to score 25, 30 goals a season. He's not that type of player. But one thing that he does have, which is something that's been lacking in so many players at Everton Football Club over the last few years, certainly since Mashiri came in, one thing he does have is that willingness and that um, uh, willingness to prove himself, if you like, and that fight and determination to prove himself and to want to, be at this football club rather than the amount of players we've had who've come in and sat on the laurels and been happy to pick up the paycheck
Mm,
and play the odd game here and there or sit on the bench. He's not like that. He's hungry and he wants to come to this league and he wants to prove himself. And I say if the rest of the players, I'm not saying about the current crop of players, by the way, because I think there is plenty of that in this squad now. Um, but if every player we signed had even half the attitude that Beto's got, I think we'd be in a very, very good place as a football club. And I think David Moyes in particular, he's identified players like that in the past, and they're the types of players that he wants in his side. But as I said, I think with Beto, the other thing that he will offer as well, because of his power, because of his pace, and if you do play into his strengths, he will stretch defenses. He will cause issues, and if he doesn't necessarily score, if he's not the most clinical of finishers, I still think that he can do a job and that he can put teams on the back foot. Don't forget, by the way, that Brentford are a really good attacking side as well, but they had to keep going deeper and deeper because of Beto, because of the fact that he did break through twice in the
mm,
first half towards the end. They had to adjust how they were playing. They had to sit back a bit more. Obviously, then getting the goal helped them, but you could see the second that Brentford stepped up again, Beto was there to punish them, and he was so unlucky with the third chance in particular. But I'd say for me, his overall game is improving, as you say. I think against Crystal Palace he was outstanding, especially with his back to goal, which is something that he struggled with. But
Mm.
I think yeah, he's certainly not a player I'd be looking to offload in the summer. Put it that way.
No, I agree. I think he's got an Everton future, and as we record here now, I'm just watching West Ham play Leicester, the opening sort of stages of that game, and I think back to when Moyes was at West Ham and he had Michael Antonio as a
Yeah,
striker, and what Michael Antonio benefited from was having some really good wide players in and around him. And I was watching the game last night, and the commentator said about when Beto was at Udinese, he had Gerard Deulofeu and Ndoggy, two very quick wingers next to him. And I think for me that if we are able to, Iliman and Jai created a lot for him and being the type of player he is, but if we can add one or two around him, I think that he's certainly got a future because he will score and he will create. And I love the point you make, Pete, to be honest with you, about when you say about he had to give Brentford the thought, and I've not considered this. By being the type of player he is, he did pin them back a little bit further, and that allows us to get into the game. And I think the midfield had a lot of space last night, and they were able to create a little bit more and get on the ball a lot more. And that was due to Beto's threat and Beto's presence that the midfield were able to get involved. And, one of the players in that midfield, like we were just referencing earlier, was Charlie Alcaraz. And I've been quite impressed with the start he's made. I think that for a new player to come in, and I know he's had Pete European experience and he's been at Southampton, so he knows the Premier League to a degree as well. But he still had to come from, the other side of the globe to play in our league mid-season. And that's going to be difficult for any player, but I think he's come in, and I actually think Moyes has managed them quite well. I know we got a start last night because Toure had, domestic responsibilities with his wife giving birth, but I think Moyes has managed them quite well in bringing them on in fits and spurts and getting them used to the intensity and the levels that you need to play at in the Premier League. But he certainly didn't disappoint last night again, did he? He looks like a player that's got character and got something about him, and I think we should be looking to make his move permanent. I don't know what you feel about that, but I think that's something that Everton should be looking to do.
Yeah, I think that's, to be honest, I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. I think that was more of a PSR workaround to get him sealed. Because I think he only has to play something like 8 games for us, including substitute appearances, for us to make it permanent. And I think that the deal we've got in place is pretty favourable to Everton as well. So I think that's a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. But I do really rate the lad. I thought he was good at Southampton. Obviously they ended up getting relegated. I think he went on loan to Juventus, didn't he? He's
Mm.
obviously gone back to South America, and you know, I, I think he's come back to the Premier League and taken to it like a duck to water. Certainly, it was against Palace, wasn't it? He was fantastic against Palace away. Toure then comes back in. But yeah, I really rate the lad. It's a shame, really, that he's come in and just as he's getting into the side, Iliman and Dias got injured. Because I
Yeah.
really think that those two, he's the type of player who will really progress, and really you'll see the best of him when he's got players around him who can play that very quick sort of, that quick one-touch football. I think Dwight McNeil as well fits in that category. I think, earlier on in the season when McNeil was in that number 10 role, although some people didn't particularly rate him there, some of his best moments came when he was working in close spaces with Iliman and Dye, and they were able to make those little triangles with Garner Gay as well, and the three of them were working really well together. And Tim Irabunum, I think that when you get Iliman and Dye, Dwight McNeil, and Charlie Alcaraz on the same side, I think those three will work really, really well, and they'll cause problems.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that one of the things maybe we lacked in our game last night because of the injuries is those players supplementing what Charlie Alcaraz can offer, and vice versa as well. I think I'm looking forward to seeing Dwight McNeil in a David Moyes team and what he can get out of him, just based on what he's got out of the players currently available to his disposal. So it's all positive at the minute, and it feels very positive. And I think as well, Pete, there's rumours of him costing, I heard, 15 million euros, which is what, we think about 11, 12 million quid. That's an
Yeah,
absolute steal for a player in this market, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that is the I think it was more of a PSR workaround for us to get that deal done. I
Yeah.
think in terms of the structure of the loan. I mean, touch wood, he doesn't get injured, but I think that would be the only thing that would stop us making that permanent, because we've got it looks like a really good deal from Kevin Thelwell. That so yeah, yeah,
It feels like the kind of signing that you want Everton to make, but also the knowing that there's going to be, a lot of changes come the summer, and there seems to be word from the club, including David Moyes himself, that there's going to be transfers and signings on the horizon. That he certainly, for me, would I'd like to see him as one of those early signings made. Sort of one of those June the 1st type of signings that he's in the door, he's signed, he's sealed, he's ours permanent, and we can build on from there. But yeah, very very promising start from Alcaraz, and that's our last game, Pete, for 10 days before. I wrongly said on the post match last night that our next game was West Ham at home, and of course it isn't. It's Wolves away with the ludicrous time of a Saturday 8 o'clock kickoff, which I'm still not quite sure if I like or not yet. I think as a well, I won't be going to this game, but I think as a non-fan, having me Saturday night watching Everton, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing yet. But I think for the travelling fans, it's maybe not the most. Well, it's not the most generous at times. I don't know why it can't just be, a 5:30 or a 3 o'clock or whatever. But there we go.
At least it's not too far.
Absolutely, it's quite close for the travelling support. It's Wolves isn't that far away, but just over an hour or so. So yeah, it's not too bad. But it is 10 days away, and the David Moyes has come out and said that the team will be going on a warm weather break, I believe, to the UAE. This is a thing in modern day football now where teams go away when they get these winter breaks, or they get do a training session in warmer climates, shall we say. And I think back to last year when they went to Portugal, and there was the infamous deal with Nathan Patterson and Sean Dyson. I was hoping that they'd come back refreshed and see it in the performance, and that didn't quite happen for a few weeks. But I think these things generally have a positive outcome, and the team seems to regain some team spirits and some team bonding, and it's that, and they get a chance to really refresh and re-energise without the pressures of having Premier League football. The main thing I wanted to ask you though, Pete, with the injuries, this is a good time for Everton for this break, isn't it? And look, of course, we would have loved to have stayed in the FA Cup and been playing Wolves this weekend in the FA Cup, but because that's who we would have got had we beat Bournemouth. But the fact that we've been knocked out and we do have this break, this is a good time for the break for Everton, isn't it?
I'd say so, yeah. And I think this season is the priority has always got to be to stay in the Premier League. I think we're pretty much there now, aren't we? I think everyone can. I mean, I'm not going to rest on my laurels, but I don't think we're too far away now. I think one more win and a draw. I think that'll do us. But yeah, I think that the FA Cup would have been, staying in that competition maybe would have been a step too far, because when your squad is so thin and we've got so many players out, it only takes one or two more injuries and it's a disaster. When you look at the bench in particular last night, and you look at we were only able to bring Ashley Young on, and who was the other sub who came on?
Tim
Young and Tim Mirabunam. And I think Michael Keane was the only other senior.
He was about to come on, wasn't he? And then he was about to bring Keane on, wasn't he? And then he didn't. He just kept Alcaraz on in the end. But yeah. And Schmidt and Patson were there, but they've obviously just come back from injury and not 100% fit still. So
that's it. When you look at that and you look at the amount of pressure that would be on those types of players, especially coming back from injury, you don't want to be in a position where you're having to throw people back in and then they get injured and then they're out for longer and all that type of thing. I think it's a good chance for a break for Everton. I think next season, after a bit of a rebuild in the summer, that's when we can start thinking again about hopefully going on these nice cup runs and getting to Wembley and all that type of thing. But I think, as I say, this season it's about it's got to be the priority is staying in the Premier League. So the break will do the players the world of good. Hopefully, we can get a few players back from injury as well. And a couple of players are another 10 days closer to getting back on the pitch as well, which can only bode well for the rest of the season. But yeah, I just think we can take a lot of optimism, to be honest with you. I think the players as well, it's probably good for the players to get away from it and maybe look back over the last 12 months and compare where they were this time last year and the pressure they were under, and the dread of everything that was going on, both on the pitch and off the pitch, and they can compare it to now and maybe feel a bit better about themselves. And yeah, I hope they enjoy it, because these players, particularly the ones who've had to keep going and keep playing while these injuries have happened. Fair play to them, and they deserve a bit of a break.
Absolutely, and I think like you said there, I think the players are playing out the skin at the minute, and it is a threadbare squad. And I think the key thing for me, Pete, is even if coming into the Wolves game, we haven't seen a return of the likes of Calvert-Lewin or Iliman Jai or Dwight McNeil and some of these key players, Seamus Coleman, that we want to see return back. As you said, it's 10 days closer without a game to them being back. And I think the players who played out of the skin, it's just a chance for them to recover, because it's been a lot, hasn't it? You had the emotional high tempo game that was the Merseyside derby. Then we go 3 days later and play Palace. United took a lot out of the team as well, because for 70 minutes we harassed and we pressed and we really, got into them, and you could see we were tired at the end. And even though I thought we finished the game really strongly, which I wasn't expecting last night, again, it was another midweek game, and you'd feel that, and if it was another game at the weekend coming up, that's where we might see a struggle. And when you're not at 100% fitness and you might be 90%, for instance, and you've still got to play, that's where you start picking up niggles and knocks. So it's great that we've got this 10 days, I feel now, just to give the players who have been playing a little bit of a break. And, you've mentioned there about you're still not resting on your laurels with regards to relegation. For me, we're safe. And the reason I come to that conclusion is because we are 15 points ahead of Ipswich now. Ipswich have got to win 5 games or the equivalent of before they match us points-wise. And we've then got to we've got to go on a run where we are completely pointless while they're winning them, 5 games. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that Everton will pick up points as we go along, because I just think we're good enough to. And that's based on what we've seen recently. So for me, I think we're safe. But the incentive going into the last few games of the season, obviously we know about Goodison. We know that the incentive is there to do well in the last few games at, our wonderful stadium. But a very good point that I heard someone mentioned earlier tonight was it's points per place as well in the table, isn't it? I mean, is it 3 million or something ridiculous like that per place? I know it's something really high. And going by what Everton's recent financial situation has been, that's incentive enough, isn't it, to want to finish as high up the table as possible?
Definitely, and that was one of the arguments about this points deduction thing, because it was a double whammy, if you like, because we obviously had the sporting sanction of having points taken off us, but we also had the financial sanction of finishing lower down in the table than we otherwise would have done, which was one of the many reasons why the treatment by the Premier League was so unfair and so totally disproportionate. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm not saying that I don't think we're safe. I'm just very sort of, let's get the job done.
You
Let's
want
get
it
it
to be
done, and then
mathematical first.
yeah, not necessarily mathematical, but like, get another win and then we're safe. We will stay up. Don't, for God's sake, don't do an Everton now. But we are pretty much safe now. But as I say, I'm very sort of fatalistic about these things. I want to make sure until I'm absolutely. I'm not celebrating just yet. Well, I wouldn't. We shouldn't really be celebrating survival, should we? Really, but given the last couple of years that we've had and the amount of stress. I mean, I used to have long flowing hair like you up until about 3 years ago, and then Everton did this to me. So I think it would just be nice to be able to just relax come April, not even May, April, and just have a nice little, just start looking up rather than down. And like you say, every place is worth millions. So, and also it's the other thing as well. It's the added thing of if we do finish the season strongly, it's attracting players. We've got the new stadium coming into play in the summer. If players from the outside are looking in, thinking, well, David Moyes has got these playing really good football, I can add to that. I can, I want to be a part of that. What better way to advertise the club than to finish the season really strongly? So I think, yeah, I'm very confident. As I say, for me, we get through the season, get through to the summer, and hopefully then we can have a big reset, move into the new stadium, and really kick on.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you as well. I think that there's no cause for celebration, but at the same time, it's nice having an Everton team back that we can enjoy watching. I think that's been
It's not
definitely the
celebration;
case.
it's relief. I'd say it's
Yeah,
relief.
and I
Is
think
that
what
it's
we've
that
had to deal with in the last 4 or 5 years, it's come to the point where we wanted the season where it's just no stress, and we're getting that, we think, anyway this season now, and we're seeing what we hope's a nice ending to the season. So I think that's all we wanted, really, wasn't it? And we can now look forward and look up, and hopefully that'll be the case in the next coming years, and with the move to the new stadium. And I did say at the start of the show, Pete, that I had Rob Vera come on a couple of weeks back, and I wanted them on that particular week because it was related to it was Super Bowl weekend, and I did that stereotypical thing of getting the American we know on the Blue Room to talk about the Super Bowl, and I wanted to talk to you, and I've wanted to get you on for a while because I think, on behalf of myself and a lot of Evertonians, I think you're owed, you and the team who were involved in this, a big thank you for all you've done with the 1878s and in what you've done, getting the match day feel. And I think you've got it absolutely all you spot on with the banners and the flags and everything in recent games. I sit in the upper Gladys, and I was in the central part where you had the white and the blue and the yellow flags up, and it was fantastic. It was really great to see, and I think some of the banner selections recently have been great. And I saw the lovely video that young Paddy did where he was showing everyone what you do on the match day or prior to show everyone what happens. And I think it was a massive thank you, as I say, from me and every Evertonian. But just wanted to ask you a little bit about this, what goes on and the preparation for that, because I think personally it's added to the atmosphere the last few games. I think the flags, particularly the one against Liverpool, the "We Built This City" one, and I think the banner against Man United with the the Elton John lyric on it as well, I thought was just fantastic, and it really touches in with everyone's emotions regarding Goodison Park at the minute. What goes into that on a match day? Because I know you'd always ask for volunteers, but I don't think people necessarily always understand. Can you just explain a little bit about what you do and what the 1878 do to create that atmosphere and create that visual that we see now on a Saturday at Goodison?
Well, I think first of all, we as a group, there's 9 of us in the group, 8, and it's gone back up to 9 who were actually in the group of organisers. So on that basis, you know, the displays don't happen unless other people get on board with it, unless we get the volunteers, unless we get the numbers, unless we get people donating so we can buy the flags. So although we may organise it, we can't take credit for it. We won't take credit for it because it's a collective. It's a collective of all the Evertonians who get involved. Whether it's some of the people who help us the day before to set up the flags, as you said with the video that went out. We didn't actually know about that video, by the way. The little kid was just like he was just getting on with it while we were we were running around doing all kinds, and he was helping out with the setup. And the next thing I think his mum sent it to us the next day to say, "Oh, by the way, he's done this little video for you." And we were like, but it was nice. It was really, to be honest, it was the type of thing that we could probably, you know, we could have probably put out ourselves at some point to try and explain what we were doing. But when we saw his one, it was fantastic. It did exactly, it showed exactly what we get up
I,
to.
I
But
thought
a
he was
lot of,
brilliant on it, the little lad. I thought he was
oh, he's
fantastic.
boss. Oh, he's
Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. He's one of our little helpers. We've got a few now who are regular helpers who come along. Basically, a lot of it's to do with planning. So, I mean, we had a meeting with the club today over Teams this afternoon. So we were onto them for about an hour and a half, and we were discussing, the plans for West Ham, the plans for Arsenal, the plans for City, the plans for Ipswich. Um, the planning stage kind of starts weeks in advance because obviously we need to, if we want to go with a particular theme, like you said about the Elton John lyrics, that was very sort of after the derby, the reaction from everyone singing in the Gladys Street. We'd always said we wanted to get that sort of done, but we wanted to make sure we had that for the next game because it was kind of following on from the "We Built This City" sort of
Mm.
thing that we did for the derby. I simply love you more than I love life itself. Very apt words as well for the football club and for Goodison Park. So, a lot of it is kind of planning in advance what we want to do, and then we've got Mike from Everton the Gear. He does a lot of the designs for us as well. So the 2 polos that you see now, you'll probably notice that the standard of those has gone through the roof because we've got Mike now. He does all of these amazing graphics. Who's been helping us with a lot of those. We've got Gladys Street 1938, I think they are on Twitter. So if you have a look at some of the big drop down banners, the hand painted ones, they're actually ones that have previously been used, but we're bringing them back and then kind of implementing them within the display. So again, another shout out for him. He's incredible artist. He does all these like sort of it's all hand painted basically, and the tech, the work that goes into it. He spends absolutely hours on them. I think he spent 60 hours on one of the last ones that he did. So there's a lot of things that happen, not just within our group, but other people who help out and contribute. But as I say, the main thing is that it is that collective of people who come together. It's not just about the 8 people who are organising it. It's about other people getting involved, whether that is to wave a flag on a match day, whether that's to share things on social media. We do see all of the comments as well. We see all of the positive feedback that we get, and it means the world to us. It really does, because obviously when you put a lot of effort into things, you want to know that people are appreciating it, and while people still appreciate it, we'll carry on doing it. We understand as well it's not necessarily for everyone. We do see that some people might not necessarily want it to happen, but having said that, we do get volunteers, we do get people who donate, and they expect us to do these things, and as long as we're wanted, we'll carry on. But as I say, we want to try and cause as little inconvenience for everyone as possible. So if you are sort of in the midst of one of our displays, if you do need one of us to move out the way, we're more than happy to do that, because at the end of the day, we're not there to cause problems for anyone. We're just there to try and add to the sort of atmosphere in the build up to kickoff. Yeah, it's been a really lovely thing to be a part of as well. And another thing as well, one of my favourite moments was the tifo that we did for Kevin Campbell. That was something special, and I think that was something that again kind of showed the togetherness when everyone holds up those cards and it comes together. And it was a lovely tribute for a great man, and someone who I really respected, and someone who I had a lot of time for as well, both when I was a kid watching him play, but also growing up and having the chance to meet him. So I think that was probably the most special moments that I've had since I've been involved in the group.
I think absolutely. I mean, the Kevin Campbell stuff, and I'd imagine there's some stuff being planned for when we play Arsenal. But I think overwhelmingly it's been positive from certainly what I've heard from fans or what you're doing. And I think that the message that you said there about, if anyone wants us to move or anything, I think that's been put across, clear as day as well. And I think people know that you're there to do something positive, and you're there to enhance the atmosphere. And I think it definitely has. I mean, I wouldn't say I was a skeptic, but I always thought, it's never really been a thing, the flags of Goodison before, and I wondered how people would take to it. And I think it's just been like I think it's been overwhelmingly positive, and I think it just makes. I think it's added to the performances of the players. I think the players come out and see it and they think, "Wow, these fans really bothered and really care." And I think when they see individual flags to themselves, I think that gives them. I'd like to think it gives them a boost, and they enjoy seeing it. But yeah, I think like I said, it's really made a difference to the home game. And I had on my seat, I couldn't believe it. I thought on one of the chosen ones, I had one of the white flags for the derby, blue flags. I had one of the blue flags for the derby, and I was there waving it around, and I was happy to do so. And everyone around me, and you think about the Gladys being a little bit more reserved, should we say, but everyone around me was delighted to have it up there. And I love the way it's been switched to different areas of the ground. And I think, just like I said, all the work that you all do. And for me, Pete, as well, I know that in the past, as a club, we've been quite divisive, and that's been fans as well. And I think for me, that the time when it really kicked in was under Lampard, when the fans needed to step up really to help us get out of the hole we were in. And I think everyone, whether they realised it or not, came to realisation that regardless of what podcast we're on, regardless of what supporters group we're in, regardless of what YouTube channel we're on, we all kind of need to come together here and be. There needs to be a togetherness to get Everton out of the situation we were in. And I felt under that Lampard's last 6 months of that season, the club had never felt more together, and everyone was on board. And for the wrong reasons, it was a memorable season, because we had some fantastic games, we had some memorable goals, and the Crystal Palace game obviously as well. And we don't want to be remembered for them. We want to be remembered for the right things. But the fans playing their part, like I said, there was that united front. And I think what you guys have done with the 1878s and the volunteers that you have had, like I said, I just want to offer a massive thank you to you, because I think it's been incredible. And you're very gracious to say that, it's not down to you, it's a team effort. And, but you've been one of the main people involved. So, fair play to you. And just finally, because I know we're going to round off shortly, it leads me to talking about I want to talk about the women's team as well, because I know you're very involved, and you bring some of that 1878 spirit to the women's team. And I did watch the last little bit of the England game last night, because there was 15 minutes or so after we'd finished our game against Brentford, and I noticed that the scorer was one Jess Park, who was once upon a time on loan at Everton. And I think that Everton gave Jess Park certainly the platform to go and have the career she's starting to have now. But there's been some really positive stuff happening alongside the women's team. There's been some new signings made that the owners seemingly have gone in and backed, put the money where their mouth is and give the managers some signings. And I think the last game was Chelsea, and Chelsea have been so dominant, Pete, and for Everton to almost get a result out of that, a point, was magnificent. So it's not just the men who are feeling the positivity at the minute, it's the women's side of things as well, isn't it? Just talk to us a little bit about what's going on with the women's side of things at the minute, being the one of the big supporters there yourself at the moment.
Well, first I've got to give a shout out to Jess Park's dad, who is an Evertonian, by the way. Jess Park is the most Manchester City blue individual you'll ever meet, but her dad's an Evertonian, and she actually loves Everton, to be fair. Aggie Beaver-Jones, another one in the England squad, who was on loan at the same time as Jess. She's back at Chelsea now, but she absolutely loves Everton. So two players who will always be welcome here. But yeah, the Freaking group have put the money where their mouth is what I'd say, and they've really backed Brian Sorensen in the winter transfer window. Obviously, there aren't the issues with PSR in the WSL at the moment. I think because it's still growing, I don't think the restrictions are really there. In fact, it counts favourably towards your overall PSR if you're investing money into the women's side. So if anyone's worried about us spending our money on the women's team and not investing in the men's team, it's not like that. It's a totally sort of separate thing. It won't impact the finances on the men's team at all. But certainly the signings that we've made in the January transfer window have been superb. Kelly Gargo in particular, centre forward. I think I've said before, she reminds me of, if I could sort of say, a style of forward. Romelu Lukaku is probably the closest player I'd say. Left foot, unbelievable finisher.
Quick as well in the games I've seen.
Quick,
Rapid, quick.
Yeah, that's it. About a foot taller than most players in the league as well. But she covers some yards. But again, she just got that clinical edge. Again, that natural ability to get into the right position. And I think she's going to be an absolute whale beater for Everton, to be honest with you. We keep her fit, I think. Or we need to keep her for starters, because I think a lot of teams will be looking at her now. But I think she's a player we can really build a side around. I think Hayley Ladd as well has come in with a lot of experience. We've been so unlucky with injuries this season to some really key players. Certainly earlier on in the season when we lost Aurora Gali and Inma Gabaro, who were two vital players for us. Inma had just signed in the summer, looked to be that little spark in the final third we needed. Aurora Gali, our Italian midfielder, who was our player of the season last season, absolutely fantastic, and both, unfortunately, did their ACLs in the first two games of the season. So it's been difficult. Meg Finnegan a few weeks ago, our captain, she's done her ACL. Again, another player who's so important to us. But the players have just carried on and really got stuck in, dug deep, and I couldn't be more proud of them, to be honest with you. I'd say the signings have made a massive difference with the players who were already there. I'm sure that they've drilled it into these new players what it means to play for Everton Football Club, and we're certainly reaping the benefits now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just, the whole club just feels really positive at the minute. And it's been so refreshing, bearing in mind that there's been a lot of negativity surrounding Everton in the last, 4 or 5, whatever it is, years. So I just think on both the men's and the women's side, it's fantastic to see. And, just on the women's team, get yourself down there and watch. I mean, I wish I lived closer, Pete, so I could come down and cheer them on with you, because I think it's a really good day out as well. And it's a really good footballing experience. And they're starting to get really good crowds there down at Walton, aren't they? So I think if you can get yourself down there and support the women and give them as much as the support they deserve as much as the men. So we'll leave it there, Peter. It's really great to have you on and really great to talk so positively tonight about Everton. And
love it.
Yeah, it's really nice. And look, I mean, we're not obviously where we want to be, from the men's side of thing and the women's side of thing. Yes, we want to be up there challenging for honours and different things like that, but we know it's not going to be an overnight process. It's going to take time, but it feels like Everton are on the way to get into that place at the moment. And we've had so many false dawns. One of them's got to come good eventually, and hopefully it'll be this one when we do move into the new stadium and we've got this new ownership. So yeah, my thanks to Pete for coming on tonight and talking with me. Quick show tonight, but we'll be back I won't be back next week. I'm actually in Sweden next week, Pete. I'm on a school trip to the Arctic, so I won't be here next week. I don't know who will be doing weekly instead, but someone I'm sure will be covering for me. But make sure you are listening to the Blue Room as we go along. We've got lots coming up, even though there is a weekend off this weekend. Blue Monday will be back with Les, Roger, and Dave, and then the brilliant byline will be back with Matt and with Paddy next Tuesday as well. So always fascinating listens and great listens, and I find myself listening to them, Pete, when I'm on my way home from work, and I just find it makes the day pass that little bit quicker, and it's good insight. It's always good to hear about Everton as well. And if you do get us on YouTube, make sure you give us a like on there and leave a comment. We love reading your comments on there. And if you are accessing us, however you access your podcast, give us a subscribe on there as well. Every little helps. But we'll leave it there for the weekly this week. My thanks to Pete, and up those toffees. We'll speak to you soon.